So we are just going to get started. I'll bring out the app here in just a little bit when we get there. So first thing I want to ask, if you hear the word evaluate, what do you think that means? To evaluate something.
I've heard that word before. Isn't it like to separate or something like that?
To separate?
Like, it's like kind of like divide where you have groups.
Okay. So, yeah, you're thinking math. If, so like all teachers, we have to have an evaluation done. Like where Miss Crumley comes and evaluates us. What do you think that means?
Tells it how good you're doing.
Yeah. So that's exactly. She comes in and she takes notes on like what we were doing, what was good, what wasn't so good, and then kind of gives us feedback. So evaluating is kind of like, I guess, like taking notes, like what's working and what's not. So my next question for you is, what do you think it means to self-monitor?
Monitoring yourself, like make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, even if nobody's there.
Perfect. Yes. Exactly. So definitely like keeping yourself in check. Like, am I still working when I need to be working, or am I doing my homework even though mom and dad are making dinner, or whatever it is? Did I do the chores even though mom and dad weren't home? Yes. So making sure you're doing what you need to do. And it's kind of like that self-check. Like, am I still working on my paper, or did I get off task drawing a picture over here? So we're going to kind of put those two things together, evaluate and self-monitor. So I'm making sure I'm doing what I need to do. And then the evaluate piece is like being able to
Evaluate yourself?
Yeah, evaluate or like look back and go, okay, I was on task.
So basically like backtracking.
Yeah. Like I was on task, I was doing what I was doing.
I got off track for about like 5 minutes, but
Right.
I checked myself and I got back on task.
Perfect. Yep, exactly. So being able to, and then make decisions. Like, oh, okay, I got off task when my friend came over or when she turned on the movie. So then you can make a change for next time.
Saying I shouldn't invite friends over.
I shouldn't invite friends over. I got distracted. Knowing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So those kind of skills, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to use them, obviously, like in the classroom. Like even being able to, you write a paper for English, even being able to go back and like check for errors before you turn it in. You know, evaluate. Did I do step 1, 2, and 3 before I turned it in? And like you said, I like how you mentioned, my idea was knowing the best way to study. If I know that when I sit in the kitchen, I'm going to be distracted by people coming in and out, or the dog, or whatever it is, then that's probably not a great place to study. But if maybe I have a desk or something in my room, do you know what I mean? It's more quiet, I can focus.
But you're alone, you don't really have anybody to make sure you're
on task. True. So, good and bad about both. But being able, I guess, the important part about self-monitoring is being able to make those choices. You know, is this a good place or not? Is it working or not? And then changing when we know it doesn't work. At school, that might be saying to our teacher, hey, I'm really distracted when I sit over there. Or whatever it is. So, self-evaluation. So let's just give an example real quick. If you had to, not on the computer, but we've been doing some writings in English lately, the paragraphs. What are some things you think you need to double check before you turn those in?
Spelling and punctuation.
Yes, great. Spelling and punctuation. And what, so we've been doing the, like, color coding, the blue, red, green. So you probably should check and make sure you did that, right? Got the right order. And answered, like, each question, right? Because sometimes we ask more than one question. We might give you 3 things you need to answer. So that's kind of all part of it, keeping on track. So, like we talked a little bit yesterday, just different tools to kind of help us evaluate and self-monitor. So, there is something called a cue card, which is kind of why I brought, these are just sticky notes, because like if you look at my computer, I have sticky notes all over the place. But that can be an example of what we call a cue card, is like you could even
reminding yourself.
Yeah, reminding yourself. You know,
saying, hey, I need to do this and this and this.
Yeah, or like I need to stay on task for 5 minutes. Or even just a question, am I on task right now? So every time you see it, it's kind of that reminder, oh, I need to get off the game.
And get on task.
Yeah, it's just that reminder of, am I doing what I need to do? And they can help us follow the steps we need to follow. Like we were talking about writing, or even in math. Sometimes you have like the acronyms, like, okay, did I do step 1? Did I do step 2? Making sure it's good. So cue cards are one idea, and then the app that we talked about is another idea, because it, like, it pops up like that little timer. It goes for 2 minutes, and then it pops up that timer, yes or no, am I on task? So those are two different ideas. I think the app is good when we're maybe like just getting started and we need lots of reminders. And the hope is that after time, when we've been working hard, that maybe instead of every 2 minutes, maybe we can go like a longer period of time. Like, okay, I'm going to work for 5 minutes before I need my reminder. And then that will get more. And then hopefully eventually we wouldn't even need something like that. We could just do like a sticky note of a quick reminder. And part of that will just be getting more used to it, and part of it will just be even sometimes just as we get a little older and we get more used to working for longer periods of time, all that. So what I am going to have you do real quick is I'm going to give you this pen, and you can write on that sticky note right there, to think about what would be helpful for you if you were in class and you needed a little reminder to check your work or to help you stay on task. What do you think would be helpful for you to have written down? There you go. Perfect. So, stay on task, and then you kind of said why. It's because I want to have good grades. I want to get my work done. Even, like I said, just little reminders, having that little timer go off, are just good ways to help us when we need to stay on task, get our work done, and even have sometimes we call that an incentive. Like, hey, I know if I do get this done, if I focus, get my stuff done, I know, I can show mom and dad I got this done. I got my grade up to where I wanted it to be, or whatever. So, like I said, our goal is to kind of, that becomes a little more independent and maybe less of the, not so often, like less often, okay, we're going to shoot for 5 minutes this time, 7 minutes this time, that type of thing.
Just try to progress each time.
Right, yeah, for sure. So I am going to open this up real quick. So, like I showed you, we are I'm just going to keep using this IConnect app just as a way to be aware of what distracts us during class time during learning time from what we need to be getting done, and to help you better be able to stay on task. Right now, what do you think keeps you from being on task during class time? Maybe distracts you.
Distracts me or is videos?
Videos, okay. Is there anything else?
I feel like I can't do it.
When it might be hard or overwhelming. Okay. Or maybe not so much hard, but maybe if it's just like a lot of something. Like I know this is a really long assignment. Okay, does that make sense? So sometimes if we feel overwhelmed, it's easier just not to do it than it is to get started. I can get that. So I think those things are good. Sometimes I think even not just you, but a lot of students just get distracted by the other kids in class. If, this kid's talking or being funny, it's easy to get distracted.
Talking out loud.
Yes, talking out loud. Even sometimes just doodling. The other day in class, I know the little squishy thing we were drawing on. All those things can be distracting, and even sometimes for adults, it's easy to kind of get unfocused, off track. So, like I said, our main goal is to just increase the amount of time we're on task doing what we need to do, because that will help us in everything. And another part of that is, like, how long does it take me to get started when I've been told or asked to do something? So, Mr. Cecil says, okay, you guys have 10 minutes to work on your jumpstart, whatever it is. Does it take us 5 minutes just to even get our pencil ready and go? Or are we able to start pretty quickly once he says that?
It was 10 minutes. Now he has it at 5 because everybody just likes to procrastinate.
So
if he puts a shorter time, then everybody
has to kind of get started right away. So he gave you a little motivation. I'm going to give you less time so you have to do it. And so that's something that we'll kind of work on too. If you come into English and we say, you guys have a journal to do, or we need you to get your book out and read, getting that out quickly, right, getting started, so that we have time to finish it. Because sometimes on those journals, if we don't start within a good amount of time, then we don't have time to get them done before we're on to the next thing, and then we get behind. So, like we can see here, we are already logged in. So what I would like you to do is, I am just going to go here. We're gonna say school and language arts, because that's where we'll be. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna kind of put this closer to you. I'm just gonna start it and just let you kind of, when it pops up and says, are you on task? I'll let you, obviously you're not having a work assignment in front of you right now, but have you mark yes or no, and we'll just do a couple minutes since we're closer to the end of the day. But so I'm just going to hit start. It'll run, and then when we're done, we can stop. So we'll just kind of keep that running while we go through. The nice part is that after we put stop, we can go back and look at a chart. So it'll pull up little bar graphs, and it will show us kind of what we talked about, that we were on task 50% of the time, we were off task 50% of the time, or whatever it is. Maybe it was 2% and 8% of the time. So I like that too, because it kind of helps visualize exactly how much of the time we're doing what we need to do. And then another thing that I like to do too is, I think it's right here actually. So, pull up a fresh one. So I kind of like to keep my own little observation chart, and then the reason I like to do that is because then we can see how much we agree. Does that make sense? So maybe you're like, no, I was on task 8 minutes. And I'm like, no, you aren't. You were talking to Josh, or whatever the case is. So what I usually do is right here, I put the time that I started. So like maybe 2 o'clock. And then each little box would be a 2-minute slot, a 2-minute increment. And then, like I did over here, I would say in O is we were off task, and X is we were on task. And then I would just mark, I would come just like this is, every 2 minutes I would mark on or off. And then we could just use that. So there you go, there's your first one. But then we could use that to kind of compare. Are we agreeing, or are we finding that I'm thinking you're off task more of the time, or you think you're on task more of the time? So I kind of like to do that. So just we have kind of 2 forms of looking at things, 2 ways of doing it. So that's kind of one thing I like to do, and then we'll both kind of share the results, see if we can reach agreement, and talk about anything we noticed as far as how things line up. So that's something that we'll go ahead, we'll let it do one more, and then we'll kind of I'll pull it up so we can kind of have a comparison. So we'll just let it finish out.
Answer it.
What if you don't answer it? That's a good question. So like it goes off and you just ignored it. I've actually never tested that theory. That's interesting. It'll always tell you how many. I guess maybe it would just say like 0 out of 1 responses up here instead of 1 out of 1. I'm not sure, because when it pops up, you only have a yes or no option. I wonder if maybe it like times out after a certain, like it'll wait for you for like 30 seconds and then just move on. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll let this one finish.
What does that say?
So this one is paused and this one is stop monitoring. Yep. So for example, say this time you were like, nope, I was distracted. So now if we hit stop, and we go to my charts up there, it's always going to ask us to choose location, which will always be language arts, and you can choose whether you want the graph to pull up like the 5 class, past 5, past 10, how much you want to show up on there. And then if we do preview, it will pull up our chart. So what we would do is we would go over, like I said, we would kind of compare. So say we were looking at this guy right here. We see the green is positive, the red is negative, and looks like pretty even, right? It was 50-50. So then I would look at my chart over here on my paper, and I would say, okay, like if this was today, we agreed. We both had 50%. We were on the same page. And sometimes that might be different. Say it was this one, and I was like, I only had 30% of the time. So maybe we thought we were paying attention, but we were not. We were not. Or maybe had the right screen pulled up, but we weren't actually doing what we were supposed to do. So that's kind of how that would work. Does that make sense? Okay. So we could kind of compare, and like I said, our goal is to make sure we're increasing the green, the positive on task, decreasing the red. Another thing you'll see kind of here is that at the bottom, I have a space where I've kind of marked time to start work. So how long did it take me to get started once I got my instructions of what I needed to So that's something that I will just note just because on here there's not quite a way to do that. So we will just kind of talk about how often are we on task. Okay, good. So I really like that option. I really like the app just because it's super easy to use. It's really just marking yes or no. And then what would happen is if we see that on the app we're getting better and better, that's when I would go in and change it from
2 minutes to 5 minutes.
2 minutes to 5 minutes, 5 minutes to 7 minutes, and make those things longer so that
Just keep trying to
Yeah.
make yourself into.
absolutely, for sure. And that's something that the reason I really wanted to do it with you is that I know as part of your IEP, the things you've done with Miss Salmons, always working on just staying on task, staying focused, and especially with your English being at the end of the day, I know it's a little more of a challenge, so giving us more to improve on. And that's something that not every time we have advisory, but every so often during advisory, I think that's when we could kind of reflect on it and be like, hey, this is working really well, this is what needs to change, that kind of thing. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.